Pro-black activism is killing us. Greetings. I'm Brother D, B. Ahmad Nubyahn, a Pan African Nationalist for 43 years, various capacities of soldiering and leadership. And I know that that's a wild statement coming from somebody who is as pro-black as I am for over 4 decades. But if you use the yardstick of African people's control over our own circumstances, we are clearly moving backwards. As a matter of fact, we had more control over our own circumstances coming out of slavery than we do now. Now, I know we've got various enemies, adversaries, and we would quickly want to blame them for our moving backwards, but I'm bringing that charge to our own doorstep, our movement, and its lacking, its failures. We've been steadily moving backwards. We need to understand that, like your immune system, which protects you from disease, sometimes people get autoimmune diseases where your own immune system works against you. That's exactly what's happening with our movement. Our movement is working against us. Why? A big part of it is our not being clear as to what it is that we need to be about. And very often, in the name of doing things for our people, we do things that actually move us in the other direction. If you strongly agree or disagree, comment. Now, what do I mean by 43 years? Who am I to be making such a charge about our movement? From 1971, I was in the student organization for Black Unity, which became the Youth Organization for Black Unity, used to sell African World newspapers. 1973, I was in the African Liberation Support Committee, the Republic of Black Youth, the United African Youth Movement. When I went to City College, I became part of the leadership of the National Black Science Students Organization. I've soldiered under individuals like the late G2 Wayusi, the late Ilambe Brath. I've soldiered under Professor Leonard Jeffries and Brother James Small. I've worked with a number of folks, very often in the capacity of following direction. I've also given direction. I've also trained individuals, and I've done just about every area of work within our movement, from the education of children to the raising of funds, the starting of businesses, to physical defense in the black community. And I'm telling you point blank, this is meant to the people who are actually concerned about black people, that our pro-black activism is killing us. Now, I'm not a naysayer. I'm not somebody that's just saying all is lost. I'm about solutions. I'm a problem solver. But it's important that we start by recognizing that we do have a problem. The motivation to do things for the larger black community, the spirit to serve one's own people, is not very widespread. I'm not saying that most black folks at some point in time don't have a feeling to do some good for a fellow black person. But in terms of the people who consistently involve ourselves with our people's well-being, you got to know that that's not a whole lot of us. That's a small fraction. And by being a small fraction, that energy is precious. And when that precious energy is not used, targeted strategically in terms of moving us forward, then it contributes to moving us backwards. Having worked under various people, having worked in various capacities, I am aware of how easy it is to be distracted in ways that allow us to exercise our concern for our people without actually accomplishing anything major in moving us closer to self-control. I know what it's like to be part of organizations that become large and well known. We know what it's like to have leadership that many people respect. We know what it's like to do projects that provide services. We know what it's like to touch people's lives in ways that years later people can say, yes, this particular activity, this particular project helped me out. I personally know what it's like to tutor individuals and help individuals gain access into institutions of higher learning, to get advanced degrees, to become doctors, to become engineers. I know what it's like to be helpful. But our salvation as a people is not going to be a matter of simply accumulating a whole lot of good deeds. Good deeds are not going to save us. What's going to save us is for us to achieve the level of coordination of knowledge and skills and resources to be able to control our own circumstances. And unfortunately, in our movement in this country over these years, the main portion of our energy, our activists, our pro-black activism has been in ways of becoming more dependent on our external adversaries. I have a fear of getting old as I've watched certain people who I've worked under get old, people who I've worked under from the time that they were in their 30s or even in their 20s. And we ain't moved no closer to control of our circumstances. I am not in favor, I am an opponent of activism for the sake of activism. Doing stuff for the sake of feeling like you performed a service to black folks. The situation that we're in is dire. The changes that are occurring on this planet are such that over the next few years, communities that are not able to coordinate themselves will easily perish, will easily fall victim, not necessarily to evil groups of people who have never meant us any good. When the deal goes down, communities that are organized are going to go for themselves, and what's the black community going to do? Even right now, if we had access to information about something happening within next week or tomorrow, we don't have a capacity to actually move our own population to take advantage of that information. All we would have is little pockets of people who got the latest information, and the broad African community in this country will be scattered and disorganized, because that's where we're at. Now, my colleague, Brother Reggie Mabry, he broke something down, and I want to repeat it for you. He said, leaders can be neutralized. Organizations can be subverted. But can we build a better African? Can we build the black person whose energy and knowledge and skills and resources can be coordinated with that of other black folks to protect our own well-being? Can we do that? And of course, we can do that. In order to do that, some of us have got to develop a different understanding of what this movement is about. This movement is not about just helping individuals out. A lot of us have a perspective that if you help black people do better within the current system of things, that that's moving us forward. No, that's adding to our dependency. Many of us think that if you do things that just simply give out more information, raising people's awareness, that that in itself is adding to our well-being, but not necessarily so. Sometimes in our zeal to want to educate folks, we shoot ourselves in the foot. Things have to be more strategic. Your external enemies are going to be there. Your enemies we need to expect our enemies to do what our enemies do. The big question is, what do we do? And we just can't simply do whatever comes to mind or feels good. It must be strategic. Now, I have no expectation that the majority of the black movement is going to become strategic overnight, but I am clear that some of us must do a better job training people within our movement to be better coordinated. And unfortunately, the people who make up our movement ain't no better coordinated than the rest of the black population. Folks who want to consider ourselves revolutionary or spiritual or Afrocentric or whatever terms we like, conscious, we like that one, we conscious, right? Well, the folks who are conscious ain't no better coordinated generally than the folks who ain't conscious. All right? You don't believe me? Try to put some money together and see how much folks start to hem and haw with just over a few dollars. All right? Ain't no better than the rest of the black community. Our ability to cross-examine ideas, our ability to disagree with each other is very poor. Our ability to make analyses is very poor. Our system of making analyses, we don't even got much of a system of making analyses of our circumstances. It is not sufficient that you may want to help black folks, because if we don't take that energy, especially with the understanding that a good portion of people do not have that motivation. But if you do have that motivation and you take that energy and you just use it any way that comes to mind, that energy will be wasted, or will likely be wasted. We might get lucky, but the chances are energy will get wasted. We need training. We talk in terms of having leadership, but where is our structures for training leadership? Okay? And I don't mean the kinds of leadership that folks we often call ourselves doing with young people. Oh, we're empowering young people. We're training, young people. Training young people to do what? To be able to survive and cope better within the existing system? That doesn't help move us closer to controlling our own circumstances. You look at other groups of people, including the people that you may consider to be our enemies, when they train leadership, which includes a whole lot of us. When they train leadership to work to carry out their objectives, and a whole bunch of us ain't even clear on what the objective is. I'm trying to make it clear. The central objective is for us to control our own circumstances. If we don't get closer to controlling our own circumstances, we're wasting time. We're wasting precious time. If we're doing good deeds that don't result in moving us closer to controlling our own circumstances, this may sound harsh, but we're wasting precious time. If we just putting out information without making clear analysis around what information needs to be put out and how does it need to be put out, we are wasting precious time. So, what are we about? What do we need to be about? Because it's really confusing. It's unclear. You got some individuals who think that the goal is to speak truth to our external enemies. Some people think that the goal is to move black individuals into positions of status, to gain greater respect, to achieve justice and fair treatment, equality. Let me make it clear. Let me make it plain. Our central principle is our best interest. That which is conducive to the survival and development of African people worldwide. That's the central principle. Our best interest. In order to serve our best interest, I've been saying this over and over again, our best interest is best served by consistent work towards our control over everything that is subject to human control, as opposed to any other group of people exercising that kind of power over us. Not what status you might achieve within somebody else's society, not how much wealth you may think that you accumulate, not how many services you can provide. Survival and development. I want to say something about this so-called information age that we live in. That's a misnomer. Yes, there's all sorts of information which subjects us to knowing a whole lot of stuff and having a whole lot of information overload. But the real deal is, you today live in a society in which the people who run it, the people who run its economy, already know how to get people to do what they want people to do, despite what information they may allow people to have. You can have all of the information, that you want, but if somebody controls your motivation, your information doesn't make a difference. Like watching all these commercials where they're selling people some drug. They give a long list of reasons why you should not take the drug, already knowing they're going to get you to buy the drug. They know the information doesn't really mean anything. I mean, I'm 58 years old. My whole life, I done heard that cigarette smoking was hazardous to your health. Yet and still, large numbers of people smoke cigarettes. Why? Because the capacity to move motivation, yes, it trumps information. That what folks feel like doing, folks feel like doing regardless of how well you inform them. Yet our movement has not been armed with behavioral science. We go forward thinking that if I just give you enough information about what's going on, you're going to do the right thing. I have no expectation that we're going to cure this overnight. We're not going to cure this with this video. But we are going to start the treatment. The treatment starts now. And central to that treatment is a retraining of the organizers within our movement. Because quite frankly, we've not organized the black community. Okay? Yes, we know how to mobilize a group of people to go to a demonstration. We know how to mobilize a set of people in a given area to boycott a particular product. But the level of organization that we need to be on, the coordination of our community around whatever it is that the best of our thinkers conclude needs to be done, we haven't achieved that. And what will it take to properly organize the black community? It takes properly trained organizers. Because without organizers, without people who know how to handle the great variety of behavior patterns, viewpoints, circumstances, and anything else that we may differ from one individual to the next. Without the people who have the skills to be able to handle those differences, we're going to remain disorganized. I mean, so part of the problem in terms of explaining these concepts is that terminology that we're accustomed to using is associated with many of the things that actually have not helped to work. I use the word organization and organizers because I'm accustomed to using that. I'm going to introduce a different term, coordability. Coordability, obviously a derivative of the word coordination. Coordability is the capacity for the individual African person to be coordinated in terms of energy, time, resources, knowledge, skills, talents, and anything else about us, to be coordinated with other African people towards our survival and development. I don't mean pulling people together to go protest something. I don't mean pulling people together to celebrate something or to memorialize someone. I don't mean pulling together a set of people to provide services to a larger set of people. But what I do mean could include all of that and a whole bunch of other things that are much more subtle than that. Not any one particular area of your life. You have economics in your life, in your family life. You've got educational concerns within your family. You have health concerns in your family and your neighborhood, the people you live amongst. You've got concerns around physical security. The coordinability that I'm talking about is multitasking. There's no way to list all of the areas of your life that it will entail the need to be coordinated with the next person. I want to repeat something. I have no expectation of the majority of individuals changing what we do. We're looking for a small portion within the movement of pro-black activity. Looking for that small portion who is ready to move beyond the distraction of fighting for rights, trying to achieve justice, trying to gain equality, trying to gain status, trying to get money, trying to, whatever has moved us away from actually securing the survival and development of African people. I'm looking for that small fraction of folks that's ready for us to prepare to redeem the black nation. All right? That small fraction that's ready to make the black nation rise. Some of y'all might get that reference. This is the beginning of the treatment. We're going to lay out some training processes, because it's training around a variety of different things. Things that you might not even think to ask that we need training in. Okay? Training in terms of how do we get the benefit of each other's observation, being able to criticize each other and criticize ourselves. The development of a different conception of self. Because to understand that the African traditionally already understood that self wasn't an individual thing, self was a collective thing, and most of us, even when we want to parrot our notions of African thinking, still wind up back in an individualistic orientation. We need a systematic approach to making the change in terms of how we do things, how we see ourselves, how we see each other, how we interact with each other, how do we improve. We need training. We need preparation. Using the word preparation brings to mind that we need training processes on how to handle emergencies. And then discover that a whole lot of the things that we need to learn in terms of how to handle emergencies are actually things that we need to handle everyday life. Okay? A lot of what we need to do is not very obvious. Some of the things that come to mind that are obvious aren't even actually true. And I will give you a list of some of those things that we believe, that we take for granted, that you wouldn't even dream to challenge and show you that we really need to challenge that. We need to rethink a whole bunch of stuff. All right? We need to talk about things like everyone's entitled to their own opinion, and what are these, where do these ideas come from? We need to talk about, every little bit helps, as opposed to a more scientific recognition that in bringing changes ain't just simply an accumulation of any old little thing, but major changes are constructed from critical combinations of smaller changes. Okay? It ain't just anything goes, but we need some training around that. We need some training in the recognition of the role of the collective in the transformation of the individual. We need some training in the notion of Pan Africanism in terms of, like, our great John Henrik Clarke taught us, Pan Africanism or perish. But we need some training in terms of how do you apply Pan Africanism, not simply to whether this particular ethnic group and that particular ethnic group can work together, but can this church and that church work together? Can this gang and that gang work together? Can this individuals who are engaged in particular set of professional activities can be coordinated with folks who ain't even got no profession? That's Pan-Africanism too. But we need some training in terms of that. Oh, we need all kinds of training, and it's coming. Again, my name is Brother D, B. Amar Nubyahn, and this has been a training announcement from the New Ashe. That's the New Pan-African social health effort. A new thrust from those of us who are guided by the systematic acquisition and application of knowledge and skills for the best interest of African people. A series of training films will follow shortly, and I thank you for your attention.